Thank you for joining us. You are a part of a powerful group who recognizes that Black women's health should be at the forefront of the national conversation. We are mothers, daughters, activists, entrepreneurs, entertainers, corporate warriors, and more, who help boost the economy and often drive the national conversation. For almost 40 years, the Black Women's Health Imperative has strived to amplify our voices, help enact policy that protects us, research our issues, create programs that enhance our lives, and produce events like this one to ensure we keep the conversation going about the issues that matter to us most. So, let's get started with our program.
Hey everybody, welcome. I'm so happy you're here today. It's your Dish Diva, Erin Taylor, coming to you from the Black Women's Health Imperative. So thanks for joining us today for To Meat or Not to Meat, where we'll be exploring the benefits and also the drawbacks of ditching meat in your meals. So is this the right decision for you? Well, after today's discussion, you'll have the information you need to make a decision that works best for you and your lifestyle. So if you have any questions during our discussion, please put them in the chat because we'll answer those at the very end, okay? Now, let's get started. Our first guest, Kaori Nick, is the vegan beauty expert. So I'd love to welcome her to the room and begin this wonderful discussion about meat or not to meat. Hi,
Good
Kaori.
morning.
Welcome.
How are you?
How are you? Good. How are you doing?
So good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here to provide some perspective on this whole meatless thing and plant-based lifestyle. I
Yes.
know you're the vegan beauty expert, so I'm assuming that means you fully adopted a completely vegan lifestyle.
Yes,
Is that
100%.
correct?
Yes, from my products that I use every day, my cosmetics and the food. It's a full lifestyle transition. I don't even wear leather anymore, and I used to really love leather. So yeah, it's the whole
Mhm.
thing.
Well, I would love to hear about your journey. Like, how did you get to this point?
For me personally, it was about performance. When I moved from Chicago to LA about 8 years ago, I had several jobs, several places I need to show up and be full in my personality and energy. And I wasn't able to achieve that with my current diet at that time. So I just trial and error, and it led me to veganism. So it was about, narrowing down what was slowing me down and eliminating those things and incorporating new vegetables, new fruits that I didn't know anything about to help me sustain. So yeah,
Okay.
it was about sustainability for sure.
Okay. Well, and I like that trial and error thing and the fact that you were listening to your body. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's huge. You have to be in touch with what's going on with your body in order to make it healthier, right?
And for
Yeah.
it to stick, I feel like a lot of people when I'm going to start a brand new life on Monday. It's so unrealistic to
That
start a brand new life that you don't know anything about starting Monday. So that's why I really enjoy my journey, because it started out with red meat and beef and pork
Mhm.
when I was about 19. And then when I moved out here, I dropped the chicken, I dropped the dairy, then came the eggs. It was very slow process. And then one day I was like, it's been 2 weeks and I haven't had any eggs. That was hard. Eggs and fish was the hardest.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you talk about doing it over time. So, BWHI's signature program, Change Your Lifestyle, Change Your Life, what we call CYL squared, really focuses on a lifestyle change to prevent, type 2 diabetes, but also other chronic diseases. So I think it's really important to hear that is that change takes time, right? So doing little increments and figuring things out, what works, what doesn't work, that's the best route, right?
100%.
100%. Yeah. And
Being committed to your why, for sure. Sorry.
no, you're fine.
Just reiterating what you were saying, just
Mhm.
committing to your why. It doesn't have to be performance like me. It could be health reasons. It could be the animals. There's so many reasons why plant-based could be your reason to take on that journey.
Yeah, and for the sake of our discussion today, I know we're really focusing in on the nutritional aspects of it, but also that mindset, that people have about giving up meat. And so, within our community, we love our food and we're so
Yes.
connected to our food on a
Yes.
social, a family aspect. So how would you convince people? Well, not even convince them. How do people, if they want to give up meat, how do they still keep that connection to the food?
Well, growing up in Chicago, we are all about our six-piece mouth. That's what we get at Harold's. We love our catfish, we love our barbecue, we love our soul food, but a lot of the essence of those dishes is in the seasoning. And that's where the ancestry is. It's in the seasoning. So I think just really understanding your pantry and what everything can do for your food, and even the salts. And that's not vegan or not vegan. Salt is just, really hard on the body, salt and sugar. So just understanding how to navigate around those things while still having lots of flavorful dishes is super key.
Right. And I've heard it said before that when there's no meat on the plate, it feels like you're just eating side dishes. I love that you're honing in on the spices, because I think sometimes people just eat vegetables in the same way all the time and they don't experiment with trying new things. So, like, what are your thoughts on that way of thinking?
We get so stuck because even with the same 4 animals that we're eating all the time, I just think it's interesting people's tolerance for beef, chicken, pork in all of these really dry, uninteresting ways over and over again, at the funeral, at the wedding, at the barbecue, at the birthdays. Like, we'll eat the same dishes that are not prepared well, but stick to them faithfully. But when it comes to these fruits and vegetables, we're like, I don't know about that. And it's like, well, we need to expand overall, just the way that we're preparing our food, how we're approaching the meals. But I don't think we're missing out. And I know we spoke about this previously, just not feeling deprived. So expansion is key. It's not about depriving ourselves. It's not about taking out so many things. It's about adding new things, expanding first, for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that way of thinking. And not everybody is going to hop on this lifestyle. Like you said, it took you some time. So I think that it's important, like, something like Meatless Monday. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that could be some way to incorporate ditching the meat sometimes.
No, I love Meatless Mondays, or anything that just includes having it in your schedule regularly. I think whatever you commit to is the easiest. So if that's Meatless Mondays, if it's having one vegan meal a day, it's really not hard to go vegan when you think about how we put a plate together. It could be a salad. It could be lentils. I know a lot of people sleep on lentils. Lentils is an amazing source of protein, and we're so concerned about protein, but we're not concerned about everything else. When I first went vegan for the first year and a half, I was iron deficient. So I had to figure that out. That was more important than protein, your vitamin B levels, all those things. So I think also having a good relationship with your physician is key when you're making something like this a transition.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's perfect, because I think that so many people want to do this, but they don't necessarily know how to do it or do it in a healthy way. Now, one thing I do want to mention, you talked about growing up in Chicago. You talked about the food being a big deal there.
Yes.
So how has your family adapted to your new lifestyle? Like, when you go home and visit, are they on board with the way you eat?
Yes, they are. I have the most amazing mom. She's in here today, so I'm sure she's in the audience. But no, my mom has been super flexible and has been growing with me through the years. So, and my brother is a carnivore, and my sister likes fish. So we're all in completely different arenas. But when you come to our Thanksgiving dinner, it's mostly plant-based because it's mostly sides. We have 1 or 2 meat dishes, but the most of it is, dairy-free, egg-free. So I love that. But it has been, again, over time. It didn't start out that way. At first, I just had to navigate the best way I could around it. But I'm really lucky to have a family that just knows and is willing to be open-minded, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes a difference, right? When you're embarking on a different lifestyle that's different from your family, that support is huge.
Yes.
So I guess, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was listening.
I was just going to say, I mean, so finding those people, right, that are in your corner, or that people, or like a support group, or other, they have vegan societies you can join. I mean, there's festivals, there's just all kinds of things that you can kind of get engaged in to kind of help with building that support.
That's what we love about social media, because now we have all these amazing influencers that are sharing the plant-based places that they're visiting in their cities. We have one, Miss Tamika in Chicago. She does a really great job of just keeping us updated with not even just vegan restaurants, but restaurants that have vegan options.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not to be overlooked. You can still enjoy being social with people and still have your options. So no, the internet is amazing. Having community is key. And connecting with other veterans in the space is great. Like I have a handful of people that I go to when I'm stuck in something, whether it be the iron deficiency thing or I want a really good pizza. Where's the pizza?
Yeah. Right.
We have those people that we could just go to and they got the answers because they've been through it already. Everybody has gone through some phase of this at some point. So connecting to other people that have is super key.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see how many, people in our community are becoming vegans or adopting a plant-based lifestyle.
Yeah.
Usually something of that nature a few years back, a lot of Black folks will be, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm not eating sides all the time. I'm not giving up my meat. So I think that's key. I mean, you see people doing it. Now you can see yourself actually achieving that as well, if that is your choice.
Yes, absolutely. And I know a lot of people are really, when I think about people that want to expand or try something new, a lot of fear comes in the price. It's too expensive to be healthy, or the healthier option costs more. But in the long run, it really does benefit you to invest in quality for your body, like quality fuel to feed the engine. Like that's how I'm always explaining it to people. Like, how do you want to run? How do you want the next 24 hours to 72 hours to run for you? And eat like that,
Yeah. And it's investment in your health, if you think about it that way. And meat has gotten expensive. I mean,
and now the meat ain't real. This lab meat, and I know a lot of people are scared about, we've got these lab grown cells and that's how they're building the chicken. But it's always been like this to some degree with the processed food. It's been tampered with and, ran through labs and gluten added. It's a lot going. It's always been like that. So it's scary.
It can be. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Kerry, it's great to hear your perspective on this. I could talk about food all day. And we could go off on so many different tangents with this conversation, but we're going to try to keep it to the nutrition and the benefits and the drawbacks of doing the plant-based diet. So what I want to do is just bring in the troops. We're going to have some of our other panelists come in that are connected to BWHI as well. So we've got Sharon Hawks, who is a registered dietitian. Hello, Sharon. How are you? And we're also going to be bringing
Hello, everyone.
Hi. We're going to be bringing in Niambi Sims, who is also a lifestyle coach like myself for our CYL Squared program, and also a healthy chef. So welcome, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, hello. Great. Thank you.
Good. Well, I'm so glad you guys were able to join us here. I know you've listened to our conversation. I'm sure you've got some tidbits you want to add as well. But I really want to kind of throw the first question to Sharon. I know, one of the big concerns with adopting a plant-based lifestyle and really giving up meat and all kinds of the animal materials is that, where are you going to get your protein, when you give up the meat? Can you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. Kaori, she said wonderfully about how you can get the protein, even being a vegan. I talk a lot about taking advantage of, she talked about the lentils, the beans. There's a lot of different ways, even certain grains like quinoa and farro, a lot of those have a lot of protein too as well. So there are ways you can absolutely get in plenty of protein with a vegan diet.
Okay, well, good. And that's really good to know because I think people struggle with that. And, we also talked about doing like a Meatless Monday. Now, have you seen people like some of your clients that have had benefits of giving up meat, even just on a part-time basis?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I myself practice Meatless Monday. Actually, a few days out of the week, I'm vegan myself. My youngest son is strictly vegan. And so with that, it's a big part of our life. A lot of my patients, even if I can't get them to go give up meat totally, I have in the practice, I talk a lot about being plant focused. I think the key to remember, we can go today about the pros and cons of vegan diet, But at the end of the day, you cannot stay healthy if plants are not a big portion of what you do in your life. Yeah. And that's the point I make. We start with Meatless Mondays and we move from there and see if we can get them to incorporate more plant-based in their life.
Mm-hmm. No, and I like that. And you mentioned like talking about pros and cons of going meatless. Like, are there any drawbacks of going meatless?
Well, I think we touched on it earlier. One of the biggest concerns I have about going totally vegan is some of the nutrients that would be missed. We talked about protein, but also vitamin B, B12, which is only found in animal byproducts, omega-3 fats, vitamin D, zinc, some essential amino acids, and calcium. Now, can you still incorporate that? Absolutely, in the vegan diet. One of the cons I find is, as it was alluded to earlier, it takes a lot of planning. But it's just like anything else. Once you've been doing it a while, it gets very easy. But you got to know in the beginning, it is a learning curve. I love the fact that you said you slowly went into veganism. You didn't just start out there. I have patients who walk in to see me for the first time. I want to become a vegan. I say, okay, why are we doing this? Yeah. So one of the first things I ask is, why are you doing it? And again, it was said so beautifully earlier about, the question is, why are you choosing this? Is it for health reasons? Is it because you want to, lower your carbon footprint on the planet? Is it because your friends are vegan and you thought it'd be cool, right?
Right.
So I really dig into why they decide to do it. And again, it's got to be a slow process. I think the reason why a lot of people fall off being vegans is because, again, it's a learning curve and it requires a lot of discipline to do it. And you have people who just want it now and they don't want to put in the work. One of the other big cons I see about being vegan is I remind people Oreos, potato chips, and sodas are vegan. So just when someone say they're vegan to me, I'm not impressed. What I hear Kaori saying is, she's living a healthy life. She's doing it for the health of her body. Unfortunately, a lot of vegans aren't living that way. And so I spend a lot of my time teaching them that if you're going to do this, you got to eat clean. This got to be about your health.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And I mean, I can relate to that. I've known a lot of vegans.
Do I have a delay? I'm wondering if I have a delay.
Just a little bit. That's okay. We're working with it.
Okay.
But what you were saying about, the unhealthy vegans, I've known a lot of vegans throughout my career who, they still had a lot of unhealthy habits. They still smoked. They buy all the processed food. I mean, it's, you can be a vegan very easily now because there's so many products on the shelves that are promoting vegan, that it's a vegan product, because they know people are trying to, adopt this lifestyle. But wow, I mean, if you're eating a whole lot of processed foods and you're not eating those whole foods, those fruits and vegetables and those nuts and seeds, your body is still depleted. So you're not healthy whatsoever. Yeah. So I think that's a very good point. I mean, it really there needs to be some education behind it before just jumping in. And I know you talked about people wanting to do it now. And, I'm guilty of that too. I have that all or nothing attitude sometimes and I have to stop myself and say, okay, Erin, it's not that serious. So I take it, just step back a little bit and let's just take it one little step at a time. And I think so many people in our program probably think the same way. So Niambi, I want to just send this to you. You're a coach. Like I said, in the CYL Squared program, we are looking at helping people change their lifestyles by, increasing their activity and making healthier food choices. Have you come across a lot of participants who are in that all or nothing lifestyle and are like wanting to just jump in and get everything done?
I would say yes, in terms of the urgency, in terms of the instant gratification. No, in terms of the planning and work and the effort that it takes.
Yeah.
So the effort can be a deterrent, and not receiving the results immediately can definitely be a deterrent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, do you think, have you had any experience with any of your participants trying to go on a plant-based journey or decreasing the amount of meat that they eat?
I have. That is actually in our population one of the conversations that it's so ingrained culturally in our culture and our lifestyle that is a very sensitive and sometimes triggering issue. So
Mm-hmm.
all the conversations we have about improving our health, that one's still a delicate one. Not everybody, I think we're gradually having the conversation and being more open to the conversation as veganism becomes more prominent. But I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot of participants that are jumping into it, but I get a lot of questions, and
Yes.
so I often try to encourage people just to reframe plant-based as from extreme all or nothing to just incorporating more plants, making plants a major part of your diet. So it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be extreme. Just
Right.
educate. And I try to expose them and educate them about different, like Kerry was saying, different vegetables and fruits that they might not have heard before. I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times in our communities, we're limited to the same, some greens, some green beans, like the same sides.
Yeah.
So exposing my participants to different types of not only vegetables and fruit and produce, but different ways to prepare them and the different nutritional value that they have. So
Mm-hmm.
education is super key, and education and patience.
Yes. I think not all of us have enough patience, right? That's definitely a virtue, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Niambi, you have a really wonderful journey as well. Would you mind sharing that with our listeners?
Sure. So I grew up, my family did not eat meat. I didn't have meat growing up. My parents were super health conscious, granola crunchy, all into the, healthy lifestyle before it was super trending and
Mm-hmm.
popular.
Right.
And so basically, when I was growing up, my mom, we would take trips to the health food store. And back then, um, if you wanted cereal, there were like the big bins of cereal. You got to choose from shredded wheat, corn flakes, and maybe some bran flakes. They were like five, and some rice and some crisp rice, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was no Fruit Loops. You couldn't get corn pops or the things that my friends were eating. So I grew up really, really strict in terms of health consciousness. And although we had fish, we had some chicken, there was no red meat. So initially, my experience with meat was when I got to college. When I got to college, I said, I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm going to eat McDonald's every day because I can, because I didn't get to have McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
My freshman year, I ate all the McDonald's I could eat that I could afford, and quickly had health issues. I gained weight. I felt my energy change. And I realized very quickly, like, oh, first semester, even like, wow, I don't know if this is for me. It tastes really good. Not for me. So my journey from that point was researching and really educating myself about plant-based lifestyle, which I in the health field, and I'm a yoga teacher and a yogi and a fitness instructor, and I really got ingrained and deeply involved in a healthy lifestyle. When I moved to LA, I was vegan, and then as I started to research more and my communities broadened, I became a raw vegan and went super extreme. And at that time, I was extreme. I was an extreme person, extreme athlete. Like everything had to be super focused and driven. So that was my lifestyle until I met my husband. And when I got married, he was a meat eater and also an excellent cook. So at that time, I was running a food service, a healthy food service where I was food delivery service with my clients, where I would help them identify meal plans that work for them, and I would make the food and deliver it. So I was in the kitchen cooking, preparing, researching, supporting other people, and here he was cooking for me and just bringing me food and, babe, try this, babe, got that, babe, have some snacks, babe, let's watch a movie, I made a snack tray, babe, look at this, babe, eat some. And let me tell you something. I was saying the other day, like, it blew my mind. It literally blew my mind because I had never had some of these things. He made me a chili dog. I never had a chili dog. It sounds simple, right? It blew my mind. He would make just things that were super flavorful and super delicious. Now, he's a fit guy, so he doesn't show on him. He eats what he wants and relatively fit, very fit. But for me, I started noticing, as delicious as it was so good. I would feel like a queen on the couch eating, bonbon bites or whatever. And he would watch Chopped and go try to make things that he saw and just be in there delivering food to me, plated food, and always plated beautifully. So 65 pounds later, it occurred to me that this is beautiful. I'm enjoying it, but I'm not the same person. My energy had changed. My goals, my size had changed. My appearance completely changed. And so, that I had to start the conversation. Okay, babe, we have to talk about this because this is not, although for him, that was his lifestyle. So we are currently in the process of moving back to the other direction.
Okay.
Of how to really incorporate plants. And for me, I had to take control in my hands. And I have to stop. As much as I love this food you're preparing for me, I have to start preparing my own food. And actually not eating out as much. We love to eat out. We love to travel. So those were things that were not conducive to the healthiest lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's great though, that you were on that. You started off. So I think you were the opposite of Kaori, where she, was eating the traditional food, meats and, fried catfish. And then while you started off in like this plant-based journey. So you get those two different perspectives. And I love that. And both of you kind of touched on how you feel when you're eating plant-based. And this is a question for both of you. I mean, what kind of things were you noticing when you're eating a little bit better, when you're eating healthier? Like what's happening to your skin, your body, your joints, your energy level?
Oh no, that the dairy with the skin was major. The dairy with the skin is major. And I think transitioning from Chicago to LA, you have that big climate difference. So that definitely impacts things. But the dairy was big. Peanuts was big for me because I found out I had an allergy, and that's not vegan or plant-based related, but it's just listening to your body because it doesn't necessarily have to fit into these categories to know that it is or isn't for you. So I thought I was good with peanuts. But through detoxing, every quarter I do a detox. So it's about 4 times a year. And as I was incorporating food back in, I'm like, it's the peanut butter, and I'm a peanut butter girl. I love peanut butter, everything. Like, so you could not have told me that was the reason why, unless I took it out for a bit and reincorporated it. So skin was big. My cycle was huge. Like I was one of those in the fetus position for several days type of a person when it came to my cycle. And now it's like, oh, it's here. Okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. Like it's a completely different experience. That's one of the biggest benefits of going plant-based is the hormonal control that you have. Because when you're eating and pumped with all these different hormones to bigger and mass produce, that inside of us is not. It just doesn't go well. The estrogen, and I'm sure you guys can speak to it too. Just like how heavy the hormones are in the food, period, especially prepackaged food. So just eliminating those things can really ease your experience when you're on your cycle.
Yeah. So if I can add to that, particularly coming from a medical standpoint, just to kind of let you in on a little something, Kaori, what was going on with those peanuts is that peanuts are very high inflammatory type of nut. And it's really something we recommend people kind of cut back on. There are healthy nuts, as you know, particularly when you get into the walnuts and the almonds and those type of peanuts are one of those ones you want to limit because they're inflammatory properties. I myself also cannot do the peanuts, and I grew up on peanut butter and I'm like, I had the same experience, but what I experienced was reflux from the peanuts. So I had to give up the peanuts.
And how do you feel about, because I know culturally, like in some African cultures, as well as like a lot of Thai food, Asian cultures, peanuts is a big part of food preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing that a lot, even with the soy. The soy is the same issue too as well. There's a debate around that too as well because it's inflammatory properties. But here's the issue too about choosing certain type of foods is that we believe it's actually a cultural and also an ethnic thing too as well as to what works best for one person and may not work best for others. Being someone, I'm actually a retired military officer and I've lived all over the world. And one of my favorite places I lived in was Okinawa, Japan, which housed some of the oldest people in the world. You can figure out by now that I'm Southern born and bred. And I always say to people that with all my medical background and research, it still boils down to the simple things we Southerners say. If you want to know something, ask someone. So when I'm trying to figure out how to live well and healthy, I look at the people who are already doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And Okinawa again have those old living people and seeing what they do. Even though Japan has this wonderful lifespan, one of the issues they do suffer with are strokes because of high high salt intake. So when you look at other parts of the world and ask the question, what should you be focusing in on? I think it makes it very simple that when you look at who's living the oldest in the world is what they're doing. So I employ your viewers to actually research something called the blue zones. Are you guys familiar with the blue zones?
Mm-hmm.
So the color blue. So looking at the people who live the longest and the wellest. And when you look at those regions, plants are a big part of that. And all that they do is such a big part of it. But where the conflict comes in that is all the blue zones are not vegans, right? But what they do have in common that plants are their focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's such a great point because, and you mentioned how everybody's going to be unique too, that not everybody's going to respond to the same thing. So,
Right.
I mean, that's super important. And I think you hit that nail on the head with the plant focused, these we look at all of these nations that have the better health and live longer, and you see that they do have a lot of plants incorporated into there. And so I do want to just kind of present this to everybody, but Niambi, I really want to hear from you because, doing a plant-based lifestyle, going about a plant-based lifestyle is a very personal decision, right? So how do you navigate that when you have these carnivores living with you, or, I mean, and I saw Kaori reacting when you were talking about your husband bringing you all that food. She's like, "Oh no."
My dad is a chef. I grew up in a house where we were presented with I had ostrich eggs. I'm like, why do we even need this? Where do we find this? Frog legs and things. It's just like, and this is what you come home to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, like with it being a personal decision, how do you make it work when you have a family of people who aren't necessarily on board with that?
That's an excellent question. Personally, it was really about identifying what I needed, what my why was, and what worked for me. Like I had to, the opposite of enmesh, like disenmesh with my relationship and be like, okay, what's working for him does not work for me. And that was evident in our, like, I gained 65 pounds. He has a 6-pack. Like it was evident in our, like we take pictures. It's like, wait a minute, who is that girl? Who is that? So that was really hard for me, but it was a personal decision. And once I got clear, like, wow, I'm going to have to say no. I'm going to have to set some boundaries. I'm going to have to, this is what I do. This is my profession. I know what to do. I got to do it. And then have the conversation with him. Okay, he loves to cook for me. That's his love language. We love to travel. We love to eat. We love to try new restaurants. But to say, okay, my goal is now this. As I tell my participants, let their family support them. I had to include him in the conversation and say, this works, this doesn't. If you're going to cook and plate and serve it, it should be this, it should be these. Let me show you what these are. He liked to cook with butter. The French style was butter. So everything was with butter. Tastes great. But, I have to say, well, babe, if you want to make that, let's use some vegetable broth or let's use some other. And I had to educate him. And so he can still get the pleasure out of serving and doing that. And I can still stay compliant with my health goals. So having conversations, letting your family know what's important and why you're doing it, and then educating them with tools on how they can support you, and how, on the flip side, encouraging. I had to do more cooking. I was reveling in the fact that I didn't have to cook in my house. I'm like, I've been cooking all these time for other people. I don't have to cook in my house. But actually taking responsibility for that too, and cooking the plant-based different dishes and showing him how to do that. So now, he wasn't eating a whole bunch of various vegetables. And if he did, like they were in, bacon fat or butter. So Brussels sprouts with bacon is delicious. I had never had bacon. Like, I wasn't a bacon eater. So like all of that was like, So trying, just education, conversation, giving them an opportunity to support and participate. And then I had to introduce him to some new ways of eating. And once he got that, it still tastes good. Oh, it's delicious. Oh, it looks beautiful. Then he was a lot more on board. And then making the trips, instead of going to the restaurant, going to the farmer's market together. Let's choose this produce, these seasonal produce together. Oh, you never had dragon fruit. Let's try it. Oh, let's, so that it became something we could enjoy together as a couple. So yeah, having the conversation, and also like getting real honest, being honest with myself and being honest with him. Like, babe, you see your six pack? You see my food pie? See the difference?
Help me. Yes.
Okay. Can we talk about that? So
I'm so glad you spoke on like you and your partner, your husband, because that's a really big deal. I know we were speaking about family earlier and just, how do you deal with holidays and, spending that social time with them. But dating is hard when you are going plant-based or you're just living more health conscious and the person that you're interested in or the person that's interested in you is not. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any advice, or how do you guys think navigating that should be? Respectfully.
Well, that's a good
question.
When I was when I was in my strict lifestyle, I was very, very snobby about who I dated. And that would do the smell test. Like, if I could smell if someone ate meat, like I could smell it on them. I'm super sensitive that way. I could taste it on them. If they were toxic, more I should say. Not just me, but if their lifestyle was toxic. So if they, all of those things I was very sensitive to. So if I could sniff you and be like, oh no, that's not for me. Moving on. That being said, when I decided, when I changed my objective for dating to partnership, I widened my stance about it. I softened my stance. And in terms of partnership, if you're looking for a life partner, what those habits are, what you see, chances are that's going to be what you're partnering with. So having those conversations early, choosing from a pool of people, maybe, communities that are already health conscious or vegan based, or there are lots of communities that are already in that lifestyle. And having those conversations when you meet someone, how flexible they are. I never thought I would be dating a meat eater. Like, I was like, no, that's against, oh, please. Well, here I am. So, but he's of a growth mindset. He's flexible. Those are qualities that I was also seeking. So he's very open and he loves me. So he's going to support me. But identifying the qualities you want in a partner, and then identifying the lifestyle habits, are they flexible? Are they coachable? Mm-hmm. Are they open? And it's great if you can find them in communities that you are looking for, like the vegan community or the yoga community or the fitness community, or, and sometimes it's about educating. And if a person is open to being educated, then that's a great sign. Even if they're not necessarily a healthy eater at the time, if they're interested in it, and if they're open to receiving coaching, like in your case, you have a lot of information about this lifestyle. You might meet someone with all the right qualities that has no education about it. But if that person is, like, well, I'm open and I'm coachable and I'm, then that can be a win. That can be a win.
Yeah. And Sharon, I think you had something to add to that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming from a perspective of not only being married and having very social and tons of friends and dealing with people who have all different type of lifestyles. I find that just by living what you do and being consistent with it, people gravitate towards wanting to know more. I do find when I'm talking with patients about getting them to get their family on board. One of the things I have to stress, though, that if you come at them too hard and you come from this space that you got to be on my side of not, you're going to lose them. So I always say, particularly with kids do what we do, not what we tell them to do. So if you're living it, just like you talked about with your parents, they're going to start to fall in line. That was the same thing with my husband, right? So I didn't go into, he knew who he was marrying when it came to health. And, you know, I'm not just about making sure my diet on track, because I make it plain to people. The issue of living well, the diet is only one small portion of it. And if you're a fool if you think all you got to do is eat healthy to stay well. Right. So there's a lot of different components with getting enough sleep and stress and all those things. So bringing them on board, I found when I live it, it's easy for people to follow. I had a friend say to me once, she said, "Can I tell you something?" She says, "If I think if you weren't my friend, I'd probably be about 100 pounds heavier and have every kind of health condition out there." I said, "I don't believe that." She said, "I do." And it wasn't because I sat down and said to her, "You got to eat this way, you got to live this way." I lived it, and they look what it does for me, right? How it has transformed me, you know, over the years, and consistent with my weight and consistent with my health. If you name the condition in the Black community, it's in my family. And I'm grateful to be sitting here without any of those conditions, because it's all about lifestyle and diet and how you live, right? And so when they see it, it's easy for them to follow. I said to one of my patients the other day, they listen better when you stop talking.
You got all the tweets. You got all the quotes.
I know.
I hope y'all are saving this.
It's great. I know. Yeah, that's some powerful stuff when you can show people instead of telling them, you know, and they see you live it and they see you thriving. I mean, that's so powerful. And I will tell you from my own experience, you know, I will dabble in doing like meatless meals. You know, I've gotten off of track too. I mean, I had a kid, then COVID hit, and I got a breast cancer diagnosis. Like, so I just had a slew of things going on. And so I'm on my way of getting back to health too. And I will tell you though, that one thing that helped for me and my carnivore husband is that he, you know, I would make a meal, like, especially I live in Ohio, so making stews for the whole winter so I can stay warm. And what I would do was it would just be, you know, a stew that had no meat in it. It was vegetables and, you know, maybe some lentils or beans or even some noodles or something of that nature. And then I would make the meat on the side. And so if he wanted meat in it, he could put it into the soup. And that seemed to work for us really, really well. So, you know, there are going to be all of these like little tips and tricks that you can do as well when you're living in a household where nobody else is eating it, but they want the meat, because it's going to get hard if you're making separate meals for everybody, right? Like nobody wants to do that.
And see, that's why I got to shout out Cynthia one more time, because she does those things. Like my brother doesn't like the raisins in the dressing.
Right.
I don't know how raisins ended up in our dressing. It happened, but now she does one with and one without so that everybody can do, you know, I love that customization, but it's not always possible. But when you can, I love that you had the meat on the side and without. That's awesome.
That's the only way it was working in my household. I mean, because I was like, I didn't want it. And so I wasn't going to cook it in it. So it was like, okay, well, normally if we're doing, you know, black beans and rice, you know, I'm chopping it full of like peppers and onions, and I got all of this garlic in it. Cause you know, if it calls for 3 cloves, I put 6. And you know, then it's like, well, normally we would have some sausage on the side. So I'm like, okay, I can easily just make this meal, put some sausage, heat some up, grill it or whatever, and then slice it. And then he can just put it into his meal when he's ready to eat it. And it works perfectly. So, I mean, you know, when you can find things like that can help, it eliminates having to make so many different meals. But I do commend Cynthia as well for doing that.
And what happens eventually, I would do that for my family, where eventually my husband said, "Oh, you don't have to put that in there for me."
Because he started
You
eating the plant-based.
just move along. You don't make a big like, "Oh, good for you." It's like, okay, no problem. And you just move along, and you find, and then there's not that conflict.
Yeah.
So when he does want a little meat and something, okay, that's fine. It's a balance, really, when you're trying to work with others. I think it's unrealistic when you spend your time obsessed when someone else is not doing what you know they need to do. I find when you back off and give them that space and just slowly introduce things, you'll be amazed at changes my husband has made over the years. In my family, I told you my youngest son is a vegan. And it's a gradual thing that needs to happen very organically. And that's with anyone. And I find with my patients, when I'm dealing with them and they're making changes, it is a gradual thing. And it's not to have them to wake up one morning, everything's perfect. Every time they come back for a visit, watching the things that they've changed. It's very rewarding because I start off with 3 goals. I say to them, we're going to pick 3 things you're going to work on until the next visit. Not everything, just 3. There's some powerful research that says small changes wins the race. Right. So start out small and they add on to that as they go along. And you'll be amazed within 6-8 months, they're blown away about the changes they made. But if I said from the beginning, you got to cut out all this, do all that, that's a turn off, particularly in our community, because we tend to be all or nothing people. Right. Either we're going to do it right or we ain't doing it at all. So if you come too hard, you're going to lose them. Right. So gradual is what wins the race.
Well, and I like how you say like we are typically all or nothing people, because I, like I said, I suffer from that too. And on my health journey, I was just always so big on like quality of food. And if I was eating meat, it had to be grass fed and free range. And you know what I mean? And I was eating a lot of organic stuff. And this is before kid. Because now like all my money goes to him. But I just, it created a lot of anxiety for me when I would travel. So if we go to my family's house or my in-laws' house, and knowing that, they're in the country in Virginia, and these beef ribs that she's making specifically for my husband, I know they're not grass-fed. And so I'm like having like this issue internally about how do I deal with it? Like, I don't want to eat it. So I think for me, I had to, again, step back, and, this all or nothing attitude just had to like change a little bit. And so I want to just kind of hear from you guys on how you navigate that, like, especially when you're traveling. I had a coach who is vegan at home. When she travels, she actually just eats meat because she was like, it's just too hard, especially where we are. If we're going somewhere that doesn't have a good, plant-based restaurant, going on in that area, it's going to be harder for them to find the food that they want. So they just eat the meat when they travel. But at home, they just eat plant-based. So I just want to hear from you guys, like, what kind of things do you do when you travel to help you stay on track or to keep the anxiety low if you are that all or nothing?
I'd say do the best you can do with what you have, and have grace. Have grace with yourself, because, and it's so easy, particularly like you said, with our culture, and in Los Angeles, it's very easy to become very strict in your eating, and you can have that lifestyle and be okay. Other parts of the country are not as accessible. So, and then culturally, if you travel outside of the country, you're probably not going to get the grass-fed, vegan this and this. You might not. So having grace with yourself and patience. And as we spoke of earlier, really listening to your body, knowing what your body needs to sufficiently nourish itself, and being okay with that. But mostly grace and patience with yourself, and doing the best you can. Maybe that means, looking at the menu, getting the sauce on the side, having an extra salad, making sure you have a fresh salad, first, or finding a way to incorporate the vegetables that are available to you. And if there's no vegetables, pray, bless the food, and have grace.
Because at the end of the day, it's what you do consistently that is going to wreak havoc on your health.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing we got to remember, because we get into the all or nothing and we get ourselves all worked up. When I travel, I'm actually a part of a travel group. My kids are grown now, so I have earned it. So we spend a lot of time traveling and different things in a group that we travel with. We have one person in the group and I'm working on her, but she's, yeah. So let me just say, what I do is I stay on track for breakfast and dinner. I'm on my game. I'm up in the morning working out wherever we are. I'm doing what I need to do, because I know if it's going to go awry, it's going to be dinner time. Mm-hmm. So I save that splurge and different things just for the dinner. So that's what I do with travel, and it works out very well. I come back, I haven't gained an ounce. I still feel pretty good. So I try to still incorporate certain things in my life, but be real. I'm from down south. I go home, I'm going to have my mother's biscuits, right? I get them once or twice a year. I can live with that. Yes. So it's finding that balance that works for you, because at the end of the day, the people who live the longest and wellest, they're not extremes. They live in a way of moderation.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that.
This is beautiful. Well, I travel a lot for clients, so I find that I still meal prep, like at least to get me to wherever it is that I'm going, because I find that when I get there, if I have panic, if I'm hungry right now, I'm not thinking as logically as I would. It's like when you go to the grocery store hungry. Like I try to get rid of the urgency by having at least something on me, whether that's snacks or like a pre-made salad in a jar with some dressing, like something, so at least when I can get there, I have time to view the land, see what's available, and make a conscious decision, as opposed to we just need something. Right. Because as soon as it hits that, it's not a good, whatever I'm getting, it's not well out.
Absolutely.
I tell people at the end of the day, the number one reason why people are going to fail at living healthy or making healthy lifestyle changes is going to be a lack of planning.
Right.
You've got to plan. There's just nowhere around. Discipline and willpower, all that comes later. What is going to be the cause of your failure is a lack of planning. So just like Ori, when I travel, I got my snacks with me. I drive my family crazy sometimes because they think, is there time to splurge when we're on the road? And I'm like, no, we're only stopping at certain places. And a lot of times I got everything there, and they appreciate that, because they want a little snack. We have it all prepared. Yes. So it really is about planning ahead. Fail to plan, you heard the adage, fail to plan to fail. At the end of the day, if you don't make planning a part of your travel and everything, it's just not going to go well for you.
Right.
The first cruise I went on, I gained 5 pounds. That would not happen ever again, right? Because once I understood how the process worked, right? We were prepared the next time. That's never an issue when I travel now. As much as we travel, I don't have those issues, because I'm very aware of where I'm going, what's going to be available, and if possible, bring some things.
So it sounds like everybody is like that trial and error. You got to figure out what's going to work for you when you're doing that travel stuff. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, you guys, this has been a great discussion, and I do want to make sure that we can address some of the questions out there. So I do thank Cynthia for asking about the question about the if your partner is not vegan. So I hope Niambi and all of us have answered it. But I do want to mention, though, Kaori, you do have a juice line, and a few of our viewers are actually going to win some of your juice. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm so excited. We have 3 people that will receive our trios. We have several options for the Mothership Juice Cleanse. We just launched 2 weeks ago. Super excited about it. It's all cold pressed, Black-owned, female-owned business. Myself and my wellness brand, Afro-Vegan Beauty, I collaborated with More Life Liquid. So we've designed 4 juices, but you get 5 in the cleanse, just to kind of help reset your gut. So I do this cleanse every 13 weeks. So that's the 4 times a year, every quarter, just to help reset my gut. But it also, I pair it with, journaling and being really mindful and just doing an all over cleanse. But I just took that outline and turned it into a product so that I can share it with everybody. So we do have the cleanse option. We have the trios, which is what we'll be giving away today, which is just a variety pack, different bundles. So we'll, pick them randomly and give them out. And then we have the 25 ounces, which is our really large, it's kind of like when you buy orange juice, you would just buy this juice instead,
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
really proud of it.
Yay. Well, you heard that, guys. So hopefully you'll be the winners. Fingers crossed. 3 of you are going to be getting some of the juices. Well, I love this conversation. And like I said, I could talk about this stuff forever. I'm sure you guys could too. Food, diet, all of that stuff, lifestyle. But I do want to open it up for some questions from our audience. So if you guys have some questions that you haven't yet put into the chat, let us know. And while we're looking to see if there are any questions coming in, I do want to just ask each of you to just leave our audience with like a little nugget of information before we leave today. And Kaori, if you want to start.
Oh, I'm always going to leave it with listen to your body. Like, let your body guide you through this journey. It shouldn't be a push or a pull type situation. Stay open-minded, stay flexible, and communicate to your community, the people around you, what you're trying to achieve so you can receive the proper support.
Okay, perfect. All right, Sharon, what do you want to leave our audience with today?
Well, the title, to meet or not to meet, I would say to you to make sure that regardless of what your choice is, that plant is the focus of your meals. Try to make sure that most of what you eat have some kind of plant focus to it. And if you choose to eat a little meat, small amounts, very small amounts. Research is clear. Plants are what's going to keep you healthy. So whatever your choice is, in moderation, but let plant be the focus of your life.
Okay. All right, Niambi, you're on.
I would say, piggybacking on what Sharon said about planning, really being aware and conscious of your planning. And secondly, learn the language of your body. Learn the language of your body. What does your body want? And instead of putting yourself on a strict plan that's completely cerebral or by, the book, listen to where your deficiency. Your body will talk to you. Your body will tell you what it needs. Does it need hydration? Sometimes you might need some iron. You might need an infusion of B vitamins. Maybe the meat is that in that moment, or maybe you are able to do it without the meat. But gently, be gentle with your body and listen to it.
Okay, perfect.
I see a couple questions over here too.
Yeah, what about tofu and soy in the diet? Do you guys? I know Sharon, you touched on that a bit. And that's a big question. And what do you guys think of soy? Do you enjoy soy? Do you eat it? I know Sharon talked about it being slightly inflammatory. Whatever you have to add to that, I would love to hear.
Well, let me be more specific about soy. There's a lot of debate about soy. Let me say that. When we look at Japanese women who taken a whole lot of soy have a very low rate of breast cancer and different things. So we know there's some positive things. What we're thinking may be the issue, if there is an issue with soy, is that 99% or more of the soy in the United States have been genetically modified. And so we're wondering if that's what's playing a role versus actually the soy itself. Edamame is a great kind of way to kind of take in the soy product too as well. Keeping again, the point I always like to make, keep as close to the ground as possible. So as close as it came out of the ground, that's the way you want to consume it. The more processing that goes on with it, that's when you run into a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
That's exactly what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and by the way, soy is in the top 10 of the most allergen type of foods. People don't know that. So it's in the same level with corn and nuts. And so there's a lot of people allergic to soy too as well. By the way, my son, the vegan, is allergic to soy. So that's very creative.
Yeah.
There's a lot of research about soy being estrogenic or creating high levels of estrogen.
Exactly.
So it's important to, I think it does depend on where it's from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on where it's from. And again, the research is conflicting, right? Yeah. There's both sides of it. So because soy is only one carbon short of being an estrogen. So they know it may play a role, but whether it's that total negative role that we learned in the past, I don't know if the research is bearing that out now. So the jury is still out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing a book right now, by the way, for women with Black women with metastatic breast cancer and nutrition. So doing a lot of study on that right now and working with the surgeons and others who deal with women with breast cancer. So it's an interesting topic. It comes up every talk I do related to breast cancer and any type of cancer. It's always a topic.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think there's a difference between, I mean, I'm going to say, I think there's a difference between the soy in tofu and the soy by the time it gets to soy milk or a milk product or a fake meat product, that it shows up very differently in the body.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll just, say this, even when you get into your, don't want to offend about the fake meats, right? My son, the vegan, said to me, who tried to eat very clean with his eating. And I asked him about, I won't call the name of the burger, but he goes, Mom, you all people, right? We joke about, he said, you people, right? So I love when the vegans say you people. I said, I don't eat a little meat. He said, you people. He says, you've tried to eat clean and you're eating something that has 27 ingredients.
Yeah.
Makes you think, doesn't it? So again, it has a lot to do with the processing with soy. It's not just simply soy is bad, soy is good. There's a lot mixed up in there.
There's a lot going on.
Keep it as close to nature as possible. Edamame, eating in the way that way, and then try to stay away from the genetic modified type of products. And like you said, it's hard to get when you're out. You don't know what you're getting. So that's what gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to touch on that too, is that, with all of those fake meats out there, yeah, those have soy in them, but what else is in it? High sodium, high sugar, lots of additives, chemicals, so, you're not just getting the soy.
Some of them have more saturated fat than burgers.
Exactly.
So please take a look at what you're doing. Just don't assume because it says it's vegan that it's automatically healthy for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see a question here that said, do you know any affordable vegan dairy alternatives? That's a really broad question because I don't know if you mean cheese, if you mean what specifically that's pertaining to.
Yeah. I mean, because if you're doing a dairy milk, I think the most affordable way to do that, of course, coming from me, the one who cooks all the time, is do it at home. I mean, that's going to be the cheapest way and the easiest way and the quickest way and the cleanest way to have that dairy-free milk.
And I actually have a book called Cheese Wisely. You can find it on Afro-Vegan and it talks about all the vegan dairy options that you could do when it pertains to cheese.
Yeah. And then there's another question about soy and whether or not it increases estrogen levels. And I know, Sharon, you were saying that's I think that's more what's happening with the debatable research.
Yeah, again, the jury is still out on that. I mean, you can sit in, I've been on panels with experts and it's a hot debated topic. Again, keep it as close to nature as possible. Don't automatically go to the tofus and the different products that are made from soy that been made into patties and different things. You were making a point, Erin, earlier. Make it at home. Make a lot of your products at home. It makes it easier. You do it ahead of time. Kaori was saying prep, right? You prep, you're going to save yourself a whole lot of time. So you're able to do those things. But again, it gets tricky when you're out. What are you actually receiving?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I enjoy having the flavor of the vegetables. Instead of doing the impossible meats or, these different veggie burgers or fake chickens and things like that, I prefer to have the actual real vegetable and make a veggie burger out of that, and I can see the beans, I can see the rice, I can see the onions in it, and exactly what's in there. But you're also, changing your palate to accept those vegetables as food, as opposed to trying to make something that's starts off at vegetables and then tastes like meat. So I think that's something to consider too when you're thinking about embarking on some plant-based lifestyle as well.
I'd like to add something to that too, as we read your labels. Read your labels. If you cannot pronounce it, if it says if it's a plant-based product, but it still has 25 different ingredients, then maybe reconsider. And that goes with the milks too. A lot of the dairy milks, if you'll read, they'll have oils and different different gums. and different substances. Stay as close to, if it's almond milk, almonds, water, sometimes salt, sometimes there's vanilla flavoring. But and if you're not making it at home, try to avoid 10 different, oils in your almond milk or your oat milk or your dairy alternatives, and read your labels. I would encourage everyone to really educate yourself on what you're eating and what does carrageenan mean? Oh, what does natural flavors mean? Oh, what are these things? And so that we're clear about what you're getting, what percentages is actually the nuts and what percentage is, other
stuff.
Other
Yes, other questionable stuff.
Questionable, right.
All right. Well, ladies, this has been such a wonderful discussion. I am so happy you guys joined me today. And I'm hoping this has helped so many of our viewers just kind of figure this thing out. I know nutrition and having a healthier lifestyle can be such a challenge, and there's so much information out there. So it can also be very confusing. So I'm hoping that we were able to just kind of clear up some of these ideas and thoughts that you guys have, and maybe, think about plant material in a different way and make that the star of your plate, and maybe just kind of, lessen the amount of meat, because that's where we're going to build our health. So thank you guys for joining us. Everybody that's out there watching, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your comments. Really enjoyed having all of you guys here today. And again, if you want to continue the discussion, you can download our BWHI app. And you can join me in the community called Healthy Eating with Dish Diva. You can also see if you qualify to join our CYL Squared program by taking the risk test on BWHI's website, which is bwhi.org/CYL2. All right, guys, it's been fun. And until we meet again, everybody stay healthy.